Good day all, Asa from Creative Fairy Designs. Thank you very much for joining me today, and today we are going to be making masterboards. So I'll just quickly show you what we're going to be making. It's very quick, it's very easy. All these designs are available at my Ko-Fi shop. You can check it out. Even if you don't check it out. There's freebies in there. So this is a vintage theme, vintage ladies, vintage florals. Another vintage flowers with music sheets and a pink decorative paper, botanical herbs and florals using the black and white neutral concept, another neutral page with our vintage butterfly, vintage florals. This is another one with vintage botanical, with nice pretty colors with watercolor pages. This one is botanical florals with book pages, and I've added gold scalloped edges just to make it a little bit different. This one is botanical florals, cursive writing, textured paper. And this one is botanical florals with some book pages and some brown paper. So stay with me and let's create these easy masterboards. In our next episode, we'll be using the masterboards to make some pretty tags. These will be the printables we are using to make our masterboard. These are some vintage ladies, butterfly, vintage vehicle. These are some lovely vintage floral motifs. Some botanical florals. More botanical florals in black. Vintage florals, some native birds. More vintage floral scriptive writing. Motifs. Again, some motifs, some lovely florals. Vintage flowers. Scriptive writing in different colors. These are some music sheets and some scriptive writing that I'll be adding together with these digitals to create masterboards. So stay with me and let's have some creative fun together. So let's get started and hope we can get through to make these 10 masterboards. So those are the printables. And for the masterboard, we are going to be using file folders, regular file folders, 5 of them, because we're going to cut them in 2. So it's pretty straightforward. We are going to cut off the first edge, then open it. The score mark is already here that we need to cut. We are going to cut this straight down in the center. And now we have 2. For this part of the folder, we want the length the same way. So when we're sticking our pictures on them, there's no unevenness. So I'm just going to draw a straight line here and cut it off. Just like this. Cut off this extra part. And you don't have to use file folder. You can use cardstock, book page, regular paper, or whatever you have in your stash. Just use it up. But the file folder gives a nice, it's not too thick and it's not too thin. And when we layer and collage it on top, it's going to have a nice sturdy texture. And I'm sure you have file folders that are already used. You don't have to use new ones. You can use used up one because we're going to cover it all up. For this collage, we are going to be using a vintage theme, and for this I'm going to be using music sheets, grungy music sheets, scriptive writing, and vintage photos. So for the scriptive writing, just use a ruler and tear them into irregular rectangles. Same for the grungy paper. Tear it up. Love, love, love the sound of the torn paper. I'm sure you do too. tearing up paper to make masterpieces. And for the vintage pieces, this is from the Printables. These are our vintage ladies, a vintage coach, and some vintage florals, all cut up into rectangles. So now we're going to use our Mod Podge and place them onto our collage sheet. We're going to proceed to lay this out in a layered manner. Just paste your Mod Podge, do some at a time, and layer the sheets next to each other. We can always fill the blank spots later on. Just mix it up. You can cut off as necessary or let it overlap. It's all up to you. So I'm just going to fast forward this and continue with the overlapping. Now we're going to place our focal photos or focus photos, and these are the vintage photos that we have chosen. And I think that's it for our photos. And that's it for our vintage photos. Now we're going to take the Mod Podge and seal in those edges. Pressing those edges really well so it looks like one. And you don't have to use Mod Podge. You can use gesso, you can use glue stick. Just sealing those edges. Fill in the edges. Press it down as you go along so those edges are really sealed in nicely. Come back over it if you need to. Press it down. And then leave it to dry. And then after it's dried, cut around the excess around the paper. And for our next masterboard, we'll be using this. It's some lovely botanicals. It gives that sort of natural hand-drawn element. So for this, we're going to be using book page. So do the same like before. Tear the book page into rectangles, small, big. And like I said before, I do like the ivory colored book page. And this is an old scrap that I have when I was doing some watercolor journals. So you can use whatever scraps that you have. I particularly like it because I think it will give a nice add-on effect with this, it will make it look like an eco-dyed paper. I think maybe that might be enough. And for our images, just choose your images. Just probably choose about 8 of the images, or you can add more accordingly. Just cut them out into the rectangles that they have. And like I said, these printables are available at my coffee shop for those of you who are interested. For those who prefer to use their own scrapbook paper, feel free, go ahead, or their own printables, and just follow the same procedure. So that's 4. And these images already have an ivory colored background, so there's nothing to cut or fussy cut, because fussy cut does take some time. Fussy cutting is an art, you know. Maybe I'll do a tutorial on fussy cut soon. But there's other tutorials out there for those who are interested in fussy cutting and the art of fussy cutting. Some pretty red poppies we have there. Poppy flower. And you can save the rest for another collage board or index cards or tags or any other projects that you think would do. And now that our masterboard is finished, this is how I've layered mine. You can layer yours however you think best. Take the Mod Podge and seal the edges in, so the entire collage looks like one image, and then leave it to dry. And after it's dried, cut off the excess around the pages. And in our next episode, we are going to use the same collage masterboards to make some really lovely tags. So please subscribe if you would like to see more of that. I'd love to have you here. And leave it to dry. And for our next masterboard, this is what we're going to be using: some scriptive writing, some parchment paper. It has a little bit of a texture to it, cream, and some more parchment paper with a bit of texture to it, just to get their color coherence to match. And this is the printable we'll be using. Maybe just about 8 to 10 images. You can keep the rest for another masterboard, because I won't be showing you all of them. And they're already in squares. All you have to do is cut them off. Cut off the white strips. And there's so many different things that you can do with a masterboard. I mean, you make these masterboard, you can use them countless times, so many different ways. I'm sure if you use these printables or any printables, that the masterboard will all come out differently and all come out really nice. And the possibilities for what you can do with masterboard is endless. And you do it once, saves a lot of time for when you're doing journals, especially if you make a lot of journals. And of course, it can also be used for scrapbooking as well. It is also a really, really nice way to use up any of your scraps. So we're going to repeat the same process and collage it. So lay out your file folder, spread parts of the paper with Mod Podge, layer your pieces, You can overlap a bit if they're irregular, like mine in this case. Purposely, you can overlap. In fact, for this one, I think I'll do some purposely overlapping. Spread the Mod Podge as you go along. Do a little bit of overlapping. And just continue the process. So I'm going to continue the rest of it and then come back. Now we're just going to tap in the ends, and you make them however you fancy, however you think you'd like it. Just get really creative, and I'm sure whichever method you use, your masterboards will turn out awesome. So remember to dab at the edges. We want the edges to be stuck down completely, so it looks like one collage. Stick down the edges really well. And it's okay if there's a few tad bits showing, like they are tiny bits, because it's a file folder we use. It's not even noticeable. And leave it to dry. For this masterboard, I wanted to try something different. Now, I've never seen this done on any masterboard or any YouTube video. If there is one, I've never seen it. So I'm going to try it and see how it turns out. And you can try it together with me. What is it? It's called scalloped. I want to use a scalloped edge to cut off the book pages. We're going to be using book pages, printable, and vellum for this. And I really would like to see how it turns out. I hope you do too, so we can do this project together. Cut all around all the 4 edges with this. And lastly, I'm going to add vellum. I'm going to add vellum on my masterboard with the scalloped edges. So I'm just going to cut this in the same mannerism. You can cut it whatever shape you want using a scallop scissors. And I'm sure everyone has a scallop scissors. If you don't, and you do junk journaling, it's a pretty cheap item. It'll be nice if you can get one, because it does help a bit, not only with junk journaling and this type, but it adds that zest to your junk journaling. Vellum is a little bit hard to cut with this scissors. You just have to take your time. This is what my collage sheets look like. So now we're going to just tap the edges with the Mod Podge, get it all on the edges. Again, we need to make sure that it's down firmly, and vellum is a bit of a stiff material, so we want to ensure that it's the edges, we get the edges all pressed down. Press it down on the paper so it looks like one, especially the edges. The edges is our focus at this point in time. And add as much as you think necessary to keep the vellum down, and leave it to dry, and then we will cut off the excess edges. So whilst doing this masterboard, some of you may notice that the vellum would need an extra push to get it down. So just use your fingers and press it down. So I just want to add one little touch or difference to this masterboard, and that is I'm using some gold acrylic paint. The one I'm using is called Marie's acrylic paint, and this is it here, Marie's acrylic paint, and a paintbrush. And to the edge of our scalloped image, I just wanted to follow the scallop and add a tiny border of the gold trim, just to bring out the image, just to give it that difference, that appeal, that zest. You don't have to do this. This is an optional step. And of course you do this after you place the Mod Podge, so you don't want it to smudge. Just follow the line of the scallop edges. So I'm going to do this for all the photos. And after adding the gold acrylic paint to the scalloped edges of our photos, I added a tad bit on the book pages and the vellum. This is the finished product and this is how it would look like. Forward, I'm going to go back to the very basics and use black and white. Our focal point and our focal images are going to be this black and white vintage florals and botanicals with some herbs. So I'm going to add, this is our focal page, some of the black and white dictionary page, and this is just a regular paper with my handwriting that I did in scriptive, just like this, using a black ink pen because I want that black and white vintage, just a plain neutral colors. So just write inscriptive as best as you can on a piece of white paper. So we can, if you have washi tape or if you have scriptive or if you have printables, please use those. But I'm just trying again, as I always do, to save the cost and to do things that we have lying around that we already have there, and it just gives the same beautiful effect. Now that we have this, we're going to tear it up. Just gonna tear up a few of them. And this is what we're going to use to stick on our pages. We are going to work on the masterboard. So firstly, I'm going to be using, for my mixture Mod Podge, you can use glue, you can use gesso, or any material that you think would stick. I just use this because it's really quick. And we have a lot of masterboard that we are planning to complete today. So just spread the Mod Podge over the paper. And like I said, we're going to go back to basics and use the vintage. So I'm going to go with the dictionary pages first. Stick them randomly, any haphazard mannerism. We are going to place another coat of Mod Podge over this when we have completed, just to ensure that it's stuck down and is holding. I don't want to keep you guys too long for this video. Just dab on the edges as necessary. And for my Mod Podge, I'm using just a makeup brush to spread it along. So just the one with the handwriting, the cursive writing. Dab the Mod Podge on. And just put it in between. Let this be therapeutic. And you don't have to feel the need to go and buy every single digital there is out there. Of course, there are some fabulous digital works. I myself do digital works, as you know. And you can stop by my coffee shop. I have lots of free digitals and download some. These images used here are also available at my coffee shop. But for those of you who prefer not to or don't want to purchase digitals all the time, you can make these things yourself just with what you have at home.
I'm borrowing. Can I borrow some of this?
So just continue sticking them along. Now I'm going to place some of the focal images, and we will be using this masterboard later on in another episode to make some lovely tags. So you just want to place them in a vertical manner between the writing. And of course, you can add more images if you wish. This page with the black and white images, I think it may have about 15 images. I'm not certain of that. And these are some lovely black and white vintage botanical images. You can also place some of them horizontally, some of them vertically. It's a really therapeutic process. I enjoy doing this. It's almost like sticking a glue book. And I'm going to continue filling up this space in between and get 2 more photos to stick here. And this is it. This is our finished image. I think it looks lovely. So now I'm going to cut the edges of the paper where it's hanging off. And for the final step, I'm going to place a light wash of Mod Podge over it just to seal up everything. Just get in between the grooves there, make sure all the edges are sealed. And we're going to leave it to dry. For this masterboard, we are going to use this printable. So I just wanted to get the layered images to look, to match this color. And I think for this, I would use some scraps of brown paper, some scrap of vintage handwriting, yeah, just those 2 will be fine. So first we're going to do the same step we did, which is layer the file folder. And you can cut off the white edges here, layer the file folder and tear it up into small pieces. And then we're going to come back and put our focal paper. And now I'm going to cut out some of the photos for the focal point. You can cut them in halves if you wish to make it smaller. You can use the whole image, it's all up to you. And these are some really, really pretty colors. I think I might use about 8 of the images, or maybe 6. So if you are using part of the image, like for example this, you want to cut the flower part out and descriptive, so you don't cut off the flower. And in this case here, you can cut the flower image to the center. cut off this part. Or you can just leave them as is. This is a vintage motif. And when you're making your masterboard, it's also a good idea if you have the Mod Podge to use the Mod Podge, because the Mod Podge, apart from gluing it together, it does add a bit of vibrancy to your image. You may not be able to see it well on camera, but it does make the color appear more vibrant. But it's not necessary. Again, junk journaling is about using what you have. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Use what you have. So this is, and for the background, I will be using the music sheet and the pink pattern that we. So for this one, I've gone ahead and added the music sheet, the grunge music sheet, vertical and horizontally, same with the pattern paper. Now I'm just going to stick, I've cut off from this printable maybe approximately 10 of these. So now I'm just going to stick them in between. And this is how our finished collage would look like. I've just placed the Mod Podge over it, so I'm just going to place it aside to dry. And for our next masterboard, we're going to be using this image. So I'm just going to cut off some of the butterflies and the vintage woman and place it together on this file paper. And for this, I am going to be using, for the background, book pages, ivory colored book pages, and this parchment paper. So first I'm going to layer the background and then come back and add our focal points, which are these images here. Now we're going to add the focal points for this masterboard, and this will be vintage bees and butterflies and all that pretty stuff. And now for the last part, I'm going to apply the Mod Podge just to the ends and over to seal it in, especially the ends. And I hope you are enjoying this video, and if you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Please check out my coffee shop. I have lots of free printables there, and this is also available at my coffee shop. These printables, all the printables that were used in this design and in creating these masterboards. So I'm just going to set this one aside to dry. So I really hoped that you have enjoyed today's episode, and thank you for being with me again. Please do not forget to subscribe, visit my coffee shop for the freebies, and join me for the next episodes as we use our masterboard to make lots of pretty tags. Take care. Bye.